Today, on episode 89 of Rail Talk, we react to everything that was everything from the 151st Kentucky Derby. We talked to Bobby Flay about the Derby, the Triple Crown, and what he's up to these days. And as Patty beat into my head, I remind you to subscribe to the show. Hit all those buttons on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, wherever you get your pods. You won't be disappointed. By the way, I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. And, you know, Joe, the rain came, but it didn't dampen my enthusiasm for this sport and this industry. And I'm looking forward to a great conversation with you. And I really enjoyed our talk with Bobby.
The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and Jon Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. Note that Fasig-Tipton has added 36 supplemental entries to the upcoming Mid-Atlantic May 2-year-olds in training sale. That sale will be here before you know it. It's May 19th and the 20th. That's the Monday and Tuesday after the Preakness down in Timonium, Maryland. The latest entries are cataloged as hips 551 through 586 and include 2-year-olds in training by Constitution, Gunrunner, Maxfield, Munnings, Omaha Beach, McKinsey, Not This Time, Practical Jokes, Spitestown, Twirling Candy, Uncle Mo, Vacoma, and Yaupon. So with those being the supplemental entries, you got to know how strong the rest of the catalog is. So now we're up to 586 entries for the 2-day sale. It's a great opportunity to see horses breeze over a dirt track as opposed to synthetic, go an eighth of a mile or a quarter of a mile. It's a fun sale to attend. It's great. Everybody's in town for the Preakness. West Point will definitely be shopping there. So we're looking forward to that. The sale will begin at 11 a.m. each day. The Undertax show is going over 3 sessions, May 13th through the 15th, with each session beginning at 8 a.m. And of course, you should be tuned into the digital sales as well. The May digital sale starts this Thursday, May 8th, and runs through the 13th. And then soon after the Mid-Atlantic sale, we got the June digital sale, right, May 29th through June 3rd, right before the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. You want to reload your stable for the summer. Don't hesitate. Go to digital.fasigtipton.com. Okay, so we didn't get the result we wanted on Saturday in the Derby with Sandman running 7th. We'll touch real quickly on Sandman and his experience because I'm sure, if you're watching the show and you're not that interested, you're a little Sandman'd out, but he is pointing to the Belmont and there's going to be more to come on that front. It was a phenomenal experience. Like I said, I hadn't been to the Derby in almost 20 years. It was really impressive, all the renovations they did at Churchill for last year. And also the free food and drink thing, like, way to go. Like, I know they jacked up the ticket prices, but that just made everything so much smoother and so much easier and move quicker. So just a quick aside, I think that's a really could be a template for other sporting venues and big races. We were way too far back. I don't want to use that as an excuse because Sovereignty was pretty far back too. And I thought right midway around the far turn, we were right next to Sovereignty. And I was like, okay, these two are going to come and reel in everybody. But Sovereignty had more of a kick in the stretch. Jose said Sandman didn't really get a hold of the sloppy track. But he still tried hard. And I think when Jose realized he couldn't get top 4 or top 5, he kind of just let him gallop in. Journalism ran great. He was just second best in the race that day. Baeza ran really well, and it proved that he belonged in the race and that maybe the point system should be adjusted next year in case that happens again. It was, the rain was a little bit of a bummer, but it wasn't like a total washout like they were predicting. Like it was off and on for most of the day. Good cheer was phenomenal in the Oaks. We're going to talk about all the undercard races, but I want to toss it to John and just tell us a little bit about your experience with your dad and your family on Saturday.
Yeah, overall it was a great experience. Except for those 2 minutes from 7:02 to 7:04 on Saturday, and even that wasn't that bad because we're still, arguably one of the top 10 3-year-olds in the crop, which is pretty amazing and outstanding. Joe, takeaways from me on the day and the weekend. Number one, applause, standing ovation to Churchill Downs for everything that they did. The renovations, Churchill Downs now is a behemoth. I mean, it takes a good 15, 20 minutes to walk from one side of the facility to the other. But the paddock was beautiful. It was literally standing room only for Oaks Day and for Derby Day in the paddock. I thought from a security standpoint, they handled everything really well. They were very diligent about making sure that you had the proper credentials to get in where you were supposed to. So that was it was a minor annoyance. It's kind of like when you go to the airport and people complain about being in security lines. It's like, it's for your safety. So just suck it up and deal with it. I thought the food was very good. I thought the presentation of the food was phenomenal. I wish I took more pictures. I only took, color you shocked, Joe. I only took pictures of the dessert bar, the dessert table.
Don't forget about your Michelin Man picture.
And we'll get to my Michelin Man, my stunt double picture. I'm sure Patty will throw that up as we're talking about it. But speaking of the Michelin Man, and there were a lot of famous people, even more famous than the two of us, if you can believe it. No other important podcasters were there, but you and I were there, obviously. Other good takeaways: the track superintendent between the turf course, which looked like you could play the Masters off of it. I mean, it was just pristine and beautiful. And despite the rain they had all week, off and on, it wasn't coming up in clumps. It wasn't inconsistent. It was beautifully maintained, and the racetrack was what you'd expect when you had 14 straight hours of rain on it. It was, they tried to seal it. It didn't really hold necessarily. It got a little sloppy and slick and sticky. At some point in time, I was going to bring my shoes down, but I thought it'd be too goofy. But at some point in time, I lost a shoe because it got sucked into the mud, so deeply. And people were kind of trying to navigate what the best part of the racetrack was as far as, firmness and sloppiness. But overall, I think that, from a safety standpoint, you have to be, pleased with the fact that Heisa and the vets took it very seriously. I know that Grande got scratched, and Todd Pletcher publicly said the horse had a foot bruise. And if they had given it, another couple of days, if the race was Monday instead of Saturday, the horse would have been fine. But, he called the spade a spade and said, yeah, you know what? If you, I think the horse is sound, I would run him, but I understand the argument as to why to have him pulled from the race. So overall, I think from a presentation standpoint, from a facility standpoint, from a food standpoint, and obviously from a racing standpoint, it checked all the boxes. Now we can talk a little bit about the NBC analysis and what they talked about. And I'm not necessarily in agreement with some of the stories that they focused on, but I think they were also kind of scrambling a little bit because Mike Tirico, unfortunately, had a nut allergy, either the night before or the day of, and had to be scratched himself. And they had to bring in other. So I know just from our interview last week, that's a big kerfuffle. That's a big, issue that they had to deal with. Not a kerfuffle, but that's a big issue that they had to deal with. Is all of a sudden your lead anchor is on the DL, literally in the 11th hour before you go live.
Yeah, that's tough. I obviously didn't see any of the coverage because we were there. But just in terms of the race, I kick it warm-hearted about Godolphin winning. I get that they've been trying to do this forever, and I know they have a lot of good people working for them, but at the end of the day, it's the richest people in the world. Who gives a shit if they finally got the shiny trophy that they wanted this whole time? I am very happy for Bill Mott and Junior Alvarado. We're going to talk a little bit about Junior later in the epic performance of the week. I was happy for Bill Mott because, he has won the Derby before, but it was with Country House.
Yeah, it was a DQ.
Getting elevated via DQ, and just, whatever you say, that's not the same,
right?
You know what I mean? As crossing the wire first, you still celebrate, but I think it takes a lot out of the accomplishment. And this was undeniable that the best horse won the race, and he's the best 3-year-old in the country right now. We'll see whether he goes on to the Triple Crown. That's yet another year where that's a discussion whether or not the Derby winner is gonna go to the Triple Crown or go to the Preakness and try to go for the Triple Crown. And that's the new normal in racing. But Bill Mott is the kind of guy that he doesn't jam his horses into the Derby or any of these Triple Crown races. He lets the horses take him there, and I think that is really admirable. And it's obviously there's a certain sort of luxury to that approach because he's won so much and he's a Hall of Famer that he doesn't really need the Derby to validate his resume. But I think that the horsemanship of having that approach is really significant, and I think is a great model for a lot of people. By the way, apropos of nothing, Bill Mott looks great for 71.
Yeah,
I see him in the paddock, and I read the article. He's 71. I thought it said I would have said he's in his mid-50s if I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So shout out to Bill Mott and his team. There's a reason they're as successful as they are, and it's because they take care of the horses, and they a lot like Shug. we use Shug a good amount. Like they're building them for a career,
right?
Not just for a 2-year-old championship or a 3-year-old championship. And I'm really, really happy for Junior Alvarado because he's a terrific rider. And he's been so unlucky with injuries. Yeah. And he got hurt in mid-March. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, not again. Like, the guy's got a live Derby mount. And he falls off a horse. And he breaks his scapula. And he came back in 3 weeks. And he was able to ride and ride in the Derby. And he gave the horse a perfect ride. He was able to save ground on the first turn. He tipped out. Didn't get him stuck in traffic. John, I'm curious. Like, I didn't see that many trips. I know Burnham Square had a little bit of trouble on the far turn, and I think ran a little bit better than it looked. I didn't see, like, considering the 19 horses and the sloppy track, I didn't see like a bunch of like screaming like, oh my God, this horse had such a nightmare trip. But to me, I thought it was a just result. I think the best 3 horses in the race ran 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think arguably you can say that. I think that there were a couple of horses, ours included, that I think really didn't like the surface. And I know people say, well, they all run on the same racetrack. That's true, but certain horses have certain preferences. I mean, it's kind of like certain people have certain food preferences. Just because a Mexican restaurant is great doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to like it the best. That's kind of a silly argument, but. Be that as it may, I think that arguably when you look back and you look at the racing form, you and I even talked about it, like all the 21 horses that were in the race, how many of them had never won a stake race before? How many of them never won on the dirt before? And when you kind of winnow down the group, it came down to like 3 or 4 horses, of which, the first 3 horses were in that group. And then, Sandman was kind of the 4th one of the group as well. So I think from a handicapping standpoint, it was pretty spot on and pretty true to form. Going back to Bill Mott, I know I've told the story before, so I'll kind of truncate it this time. But we were, I was handing him the trophy at the Breeders' Cup when just FYI won the juvenile filly, and I remember there was a lot of pomp and circumstance, and he kind of leaned into me, and I hadn't really spoken to him very much over the years, and he leaned over to me and he said, John, do you know how long this is going to take? And I said, well, they're in commercial break right now, so I'm assuming it's going to be like another 2 or 3 minutes. And he said, okay, can you please send my regards? I have to go saddle another horse. And he left. And I mean, how many trainers do you know that would have given up like the 30 or 60 seconds of NBC, time slot to say whatever he was going to say and promote himself? But instead he was like, nope, I have another horse in another race. And granted, there was another Breeders' Cup race, but I have another horse, another group of people that I represent. I need to be there. And he's got the best assistants in the world who can handle saddling a horse. And he could have been a couple minutes late and walked in and wouldn't have missed a beat. The horse would have been saddled. They hadn't given the instructions that he hadn't, there was time to speak to all the owners and all the dignitaries that were representing the horse. But in his mind, he was like, no, I need to be there. This horse is under my care. And, my name is on the program and represents me. I need to make sure there's no problems, and gave up the trophy presentation on national television for it. And if that doesn't say the measure of a man, as far as where his ego is and being in check and understanding what his duties are and everything, I don't know what else does. How many other trainers do you know? And we work with a lot of egomaniacs in this business, Joe, on the trainer side, the partner side, and everywhere in between. How many people would have done that? I wouldn't have. I would have been like, you know what? I got Joe to handle the rest of the show. I'm going to be here sipping champagne.
Yeah, it really is a great point, because I sure as shit would have been holding up that trophy and taking pictures.
You and I were fighting over the trophy in the Arkansas Derby.
Yeah,
and it was,
that thing almost broke in half with all the tug of war going with the Arkansas Derby trophy. No, I think that's phenomenal. And I think, like I said, he's a great example for the industry, yes, and for other horse people, with the way he conducts himself and the way he trains his horses. So I think that's huge.
And Joe, somebody asked me this question who doesn't know the industry, but asked me the very innocent question of, well, the results aren't going to be the results from the 2 weeks until you get the test back. You know what? With Bill Mott, you don't worry about that. You don't worry about it. The horse hit the wire first, and the horse and the money is pretty much in the bank. Like that, you never have to worry about anything like that with this situation. And that was one of the things that like NBC went off the rails, I think, promoting just how much, it was great to have Bob Baffert back, and it's so wonderful, and and they put so much money into this, and all those things are true as far as his owners put a lot of money in. He is a draw, and he had a couple of horses that were entered in the Kentucky Derby. But for the love of God, man, like there's 19 other stories, 18 other stories to talk about in the industry. And I think they went way to the other side of the spectrum as far as lauding the situation of the fact that he was allowed to come back to enter horses at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's right. Like he's one story, but he's not the only story. In another story, and this is kind of an ancillary story that was surrounding Sandman that I think got a lot of press, both positive and negative. Was Griffin Johnson and his attachment via ABR and via West Point. Full disclosure, with Sandman, he was given a small stake of a horse in their stake and start of the horse in their stake and stardom program, and this is one of those things where I can kind of see both sides. Like if you think that it should mostly be about the animal, and if you think that he was kind of making it too much about himself at certain points, then I can respect that. But by the same token, how desperate are we to get 20-somethings and 30-somethings into this game? Beggars cannot be choosers. Like if he didn't do every single thing that you wanted the way that you wanted him to do it along the way, I think you kind of got to suck it up and appreciate the potentially millions of eyes that he's bringing to the sport. Like I try to stay off Twitter after these kind of races, but I saw a lot of ugliness, shocking, on racing Twitter afterward, kind of like gloating that Sandman lost and like, oh, how could he be 5-1? Oh, it's because Sheik Mo isn't a social media influencer, and it's like, really, like, you're mad that a lot of people came into the game, a lot of casual money came into the pools and made Sandman maybe a bit of an underlay, and there were too many young eyes on the sport. Like, this is one of the things that drives me crazy, because we rack our brains for years and years and years and years about how do we get young people interested in the sport. And here's a guy who is completely obsessed with this horse and is giving the young people an inside look into a business that they would never in a million years stumble upon organically. And you still have people whining about it. Like, that is what drives me nuts, is like, you can't do both. You can't complain that we don't have enough young people watching the sport and then also gatekeep the sport for those young people and say, wait, you're not doing it the right way. That really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And like I said, if you think that Griffin didn't handle it, perfectly, and you think he was like a little bit of an attention hog, by the way, every 20-something influencer is going to be an attention hog with millions of followers, then that's fine. But I just think you're so missing the forest for the trees if that's what you're focused on. And
one of the things that like I tried to stay away from the whole social media train, as far as how people were being obsessed with the horse and being involved. And granted, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the fact that people loved Sandman or love Sandman, and the fact that he got that kind of attention, and the fact that is it the cart before the horse or a chicken before the egg? I don't know. Is it that Griffin was involved and was promoting the horse, and therefore Metallica wanted to be involved with the horse and have a photo op? And, oh, by the way, we had a really positive article in the New York Times, on the front page of the New York Times of the Saturday sports section, about Sandman and influencers and positive things going on in the New York Times, which isn't a rag anymore. Like, a rag, so you can't have it all. You can't have like, oh, we want to have new people come into the business and help the sport and promote the sport and be involved. And, oh, well, he was a little bit too cute. He was a little bit too, egocentric. He was, what? That comes with the deal. The fact that that you and I do this podcast, part of it is it's not for the money. Part of it is because, there's a little bit of ego stroking going on here. I mean, I get it. I understand that I like to be the center of attention sometimes, but a lot of it is because we're trying to promote the positive of the business and iron out some of the negatives to try to make it, come together and make it a better overall sport. And, do I like the fact that like my daughters who are in their 20s, who really didn't have a lot of interest in the business, and it wasn't from lack of trying on my part or my family's part, they're just not interested in the horse industry for a lot of reasons. But they started following, and they were like, oh, Sandman's really cool, and that's really good, and I'm seeing it positive. And my friends are asking me questions about the horse industry, and it's not, oh, why do these horses have to die on the racetrack? like it's positive stuff. Well, then, yeah, you gotta look at it from an overarching standpoint and say, is the good outweighing, the kind of maybe a little bit teeny bopper annoyance factor of it? Yeah, it really is. And there's a reason it's not just Sandman. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's the Sandman solution. Okay. But there's a reason why all the numbers were up this year, from attendance to wagering to, interest on social media, and basically every metric you could throw up there. We did better than the previous year and the year before that. And the year, like some statistics were better. Like the past 20 years, this was the best year and the most watched and the most interesting year. And I got to tell you, it wasn't like because you had these, Alidar and Affirmed in the race, where people were like, oh my God, this is like the Michael Jordan of this generation for horses. There were a lot of good stories. And one of those good stories was Sandman. And one of the good stories certainly was journalism. And there were a lot of things that people gravitated towards for various reasons. But you can't look at it and say, oh yeah, what, like you said, Joe, was this mid 20-year-old, a little bit egocentric and look at me. Yeah. They all are, and we are. And that's part of being in the spotlight and taking the good and the bad. I will say one thing, because I didn't talk to Griffin. I hadn't had the opportunity to talk to Griffin at all until we were doing the walkover and right before the walkover. And he turned to me and very humbly and honestly turned to me and said, this is one of the greatest experiences of my life. And he got choked up. And you know what? I was feeling the same thing. And I've been in this business for 40 years. And that was one of the best feelings I've ever had. And I was getting emotional and choked up. And he posted a video after the Derby. And I know it was a little bit edited and I know it was a little choppy. But at the end of the day, it was sincere. And it was basically him pouring his heart out about how he was disappointed in the result, but not disappointed in his horse. And isn't that what we all want to have at the end of the day? Don't we want to be proud of what we own and what we represent when they cross the finish line?
Yeah, and shouting out the training staff and the grooms and the hot walkers. And I just think, like I said, beggars can't be choosers. And West Point has been involved and ABR has been involved with a lot of other social media influencers who they gave a percentage of a horse for, and then the trade-off was that you come and you promote the game. You know how many of them have done the bare minimum, right, that should show up at the racetracks on race day, take half a dozen pictures, post their stories, not even a grid post, just put them on the stories. And then that's it. They go cash their check and then they go back to their regular life. Right. This was the opposite of that. I'd rather someone do too much, right, than not do enough at all. And I think, like I said, you can't have it both ways. Right. You can't complain that we have no new generation in this game, and then also complain that the person who is bringing a new generation, right, isn't doing it quite the way that you would like them to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he got Mark Cassidy to do the ice bucket challenge, for God's sake. I mean, that in itself was phenomenal.
Yeah, and also I do want to shout out Mark Cassidy and their team. They've been unbelievable in terms of the access. Yeah. And the content for Sandman. And if you're worried, if you're mad that your horse didn't get as much attention as Sandman, maybe you should do a little bit more promotion. Right. Maybe it would behoove you and your team and the sport if you were able to promote your horse the same way. It really rubbed me the wrong way.
Or win a grade 1 before the Derby. Right, maybe that's a way to get good exposure. Also, is maybe have your horse do the talking also.
Right. And it just, I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way, how many people were celebrating him not winning. Right. And we'll see you nerds at the Belmont. That's all I got to say about that. Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance, including property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. Our guy, Chris Moore, who was at the Derby too. Everywhere I go, Chris is there, and I'm not complaining because I love hanging out with Chris, but I didn't think he was going to be there. Shout out to that guy. And being so passionate about the game that, he's at every big event.
And Joe, he literally just called me. We're doing the show right now. And he literally just called me. It's almost like he knows. He knows.
Pick it up. Say, Chris, we're doing the promo now. You're interrupting.
I can't take your call.
Well, yeah, we love Chris. He leads Epic's equine specialty practice. As I said, you see him at the sales, you see him at the races. He's got horses himself. This is his passion. You know, many equine mortality policies renew around yearling sales time. So most of you listening are halfway through your policy. It's a good time to review your current insurance plan to make sure it's working the way it's supposed to. You might need to update horse values. Where do you stand on your deductible? Give Chris a call or shoot him a text at, John could hold up the phone, but I'll give it to you anyway, 317-650-4519. Start the conversation. And he's, obviously great at what he does, but also a great guy. You won't regret it. And that leads us to this week's
Epic Performance of the Week.
Thank you, booming voiceover. How much are we paying that guy? Whatever it is, it's not enough.
That's right.
Yeah. But our epic performance of the week this week belongs to Junior Alvarado. We talked about it a little bit in the Derby recap, but Junior is a great guy, a great rider, and has overcome a lot to get to this point. And I couldn't think of another jockey that I thought deserved a Derby win or a signature win more than he does. He also got the Saudi Cup win last year with Senior Buscador, so that was huge too. But he's always just a pleasure to deal with. When he rides West Point horses. Great rider, especially on the grass. Did it the hard way. Came from Arlington Park and then came to the New York circuit during the busy months of the year, and obviously, got on with the Mott team, so that helped a lot. But he really is, to me, one of the most underrated riders in the business. I always feel confident when he's riding a horse that I'm betting or that we own, and I'm just so happy for him and for his family and for his agent that they were able to get this big win, and he deserved it with the way he rode the horse too. Not easy to save ground from the 18 hole, but he was able to do it. Not easy not to get stopped in traffic in a 19-horse field. He was able to do that, and the horse did the rest once he got him to the 8th pole. So shout out to Junior Alvarado. Just a really good dude, a really good rider, and like I said, no one more deserving of this kind of honor. Junior Alvarado winning the Kentucky Derby is this week's epic performance of the week. So we are so thrilled to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. Chef, restaurateur, native New Yorker, television star, and diehard racing fan, Bobby Flay. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, guys. Glad to be here. Big fan of your show.
Oh, well, that means the world, and we're so glad to have you. Let's get right into the Derby. First of all, I'd love to hear your experience on Derby Day, and then your reaction to the actual race.
I was at the Oaks, and I love the Oaks. I'm a guy that people that know me in the horse business know that I like fillies. I race fillies. To me, they're the queens of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I breed a lot, so that obviously that's an important part to me. And anyway, so I went to the Oaks, and I have to say, Churchill Downs. They take a lot of heat sometimes, but I have to say they've come to the table. They have spent a fortune making that place world-class. I want the food to be a little bit better, but that's always the case at racetracks. But it was an amazing experience. I have to say it was beautiful. It was really well run. It was nice to be there. On Saturday morning, on Derby morning, traditionally for about the last 9 years, I cook a breakfast I have a relationship with Sentient Jet. And so I cook a breakfast for some of their top customers, about 120 people. So I'm up at 5:00 in the morning rolling out biscuits, for real.
Wow.
So my Friday night in Louisville is short. I saw Shabuzi at the FanDuel party. He was great. And then around 12:30, I was in bed. I was up at 5 rolling biscuits, cooked for about 120 people. And then I go home. I get on a plane and I go home and I make fried chicken and make my own biscuits for myself and some coleslaw, and we make some bourbon cocktails, and my friends sit around and we bet races, and we get to watch the NBC telecast, which I have to say was fantastic again this year. Great storytelling. There was so many great stories. Obviously lots of good stories about Sandman. I will tell you, I don't know if you guys know this, but I picked him. So I was in your camp.
Thank you.
And I was rooting for him. I mean, he got bet down, to the second favorite here's the good news. As a bettor, you're like, I wish the odds were better.
Right.
But as a fan of the sport and somebody who's always rooting for it, you have to believe that the social media aspect pushed his odds down, which just means people were paying attention. So that was a good thing. I wish he picked his feet up a little bit more, but he clearly didn't like the track. I mean, he just didn't make his move, but he'll live another day. He's a really good horse. You guys are lucky to have him, and he's beautiful to watch. He stands out in the crowd.
Yeah,
he's so cool.
We call him the Joe Bianca of racehorses.
Of course.
I met him last year in Mark Cassie's barn in Saratoga, and I was with a friend of mine, and I was like, "Here's what over $1 million looks like in a stall." It's he's a beautiful horse. And so
he's got a great personality too. Like, a lot of the Tappets can be, headstrong and a little bit on edge, but he's chill as can be. And I think that helps.
Yeah. I mean, he just listened and everybody said it. Nobody had really run on a track like that before. So who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
And when I saw, Jose did a good job taking care of him for sure. When I saw him tuck him in, I was like, okay, he knows he's not going to pick his feet up the way we thought he was. But listen, you're, what are you, 4 weeks away from the Belmont?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a Tappet specialty, right?
Right, exactly.
Good spot to be in. Yep.
And like you said, you live to fight another day, and that's a big important part of it. And I think trainers, owners, and jockeys especially are being more in tune with if my horse doesn't have it this day for whatever reason, I'm just going to do the right thing and get him to move forward again. And that's something that has kind of been born out of the ashes of a downturn in the industry. And I know that you were very vocal about that when we had a bad couple of weeks at Churchill and then at Saratoga. And you said, you know what, guys, I can't do this. And so how did that come about?
It's really interesting. I actually said nothing.
Okay.
You can't find it anywhere. Right. I didn't say a word. I didn't want to talk about it, in any sort of public way because I'm not interested in hurting this business at all.
Sure.
But for me personally, I just kind of, all these people, a lot of people said, "Oh, he's out of it. He's not participating anymore." I'm in the breeding business. That doesn't happen. Like, it's all I did 2 things that happened. I sold my house in Saratoga, but that had nothing to do with that. So that sort of set off the tone. But also, for me, well, first of all, I like the breeding part of it more than the racing part anyway. That's just me. I just like the whole puzzle of it all. But it came to the point where it was like, you know what? I want to see how this business reacts. Just so you guys understand, I was on the board of directors. I was the only person on the board of directors of NYRA and Breeders' Cup at the same time. Okay. And I, this is a sport that I've been involved in since I was a kid. My grandfather took me to Saratoga. This is a story that lots of people have, of course, right? You go to Saratoga, you catch the bug, and all of a sudden it's part of you.
Yep.
And so I've been, a lot of people that don't really know me think that all of a sudden, once I started having a little success that I got involved. I've been paying attention to this, since before I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I mean, right. I used to go to the track. That's what we did. We used to have this rule that if we couldn't get on the subway because it was too crowded, we'd go to breakfast and then we'd go to Aqueduct.
That's awesome.
Terrific.
So, look, we had some really tough moments, and I thought to myself, well, I want to see how we do.
Right.
And I have to say, I feel like, I knock on whatever surface I can find. I feel like it's the safest it's ever been.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel good as somebody who participates, who is a fan, who wants to watch it. I think the industry is doing the best it can. Years ago, I went and testified in front of Congress about the fact that we needed federal oversight because the sport itself was not able to police itself. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it can. And so having oversight to me seems to have really helped in lots of ways. Nothing's perfect.
Right.
This is a very, very complicated thing for so many reasons, but I believe that it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, and that's why I'm curious about like what your future plans for are for involvement in the business. You mentioned that you like the breeding more than the racing side, but I did used to see your silks on more horses than I do now. Have you mapped out your future in the sport? Would you get back more into the racing side, or are you happy with where you are?
I mean, I'm definitely racing horses. A lot of times, the horses that I bred that I want to keep a filly because the family's important to me, or I can't sell a colt for one reason or another, and I have it. So I actually have a colt named Crudo that just won a Keeneland a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, nice horse.
Yeah. He's a good horse. But we'll see. I also participate a lot in Europe. I have basically the same amount of broodmares here that I do over there, and I actually have a horse in has an Oaks entry for the Epsom Oaks. Listen, there's lots of things I really like about this business. I really like the pageantry of it all. Like, have you guys been to Royal Ascot?
No, not live.
Okay, well, you're missing maybe the best racing experience in the world.
I was gonna say, John. So sorry to interrupt, but John was just saying earlier in the show that Nitrogen got an invite to Royal Ascot for winning the Edgewood, and John's not going. I'm like, John, can you give me that ticket?
Are you going to go? Is the horse going to go?
No, the horse isn't going. The horse is going to stay here and run in the New York series instead.
Okay. Listen, I understand both sides of it.
Yeah, but we do have horses in Europe also. I understand what you're saying as far as the country. Yeah,
like you guys were talking about winning and not winning the Derby and things like that. I always tell people, like, for me, just participating in big days like that is I'm fine.
Yeah.
And if my horse doesn't win, which most of the time the horse is not going to win, as we know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because I got an amazing day out of it. I got to put on some nice clothes. We got to drink some nice cocktails. We got to socialize. We got to, and Royal Ascot. I mean, honestly, we don't have anything like it in the United States. We just don't.
Right.
It's, you have, from a hospitality standpoint, which obviously is important to me, you have some of the best chefs in England who take over these restaurants, and they do a spectacular job. It's very formal. If you're in the royal enclosure, it's top hat and tails, and there's all these rules for the ladies in terms of what they can wear and stuff like that. But so what? It's like one day, it's like My Fair Lady. You're like living the movie of your life.
Right.
And so I've run twice in the Coronation over there. I had a horse both horses had won the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf race. More Than Real in 2010, and then in 2011 she ran there. Did not run well. It was fine. And then Pizza Bianca, won the Breeders' Cup, and then we took her over there. I mean, she didn't run that well either. It's hard to bring American horses to compete against them. They are good,
right?
And it's a long trip, and on and on and on. The track is different, but as I said, to me, it's not even about winning; it's about participating.
Right. Yep. And you find that the experience overall, you prefer that to the Breeders' Cup week or anything here?
Let's put it this way, John. I like them both.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like, I'm running this filly that I have is running in an Oaks trial, they call it, at York. I've never been to York. I did a bunch of research. It's a beautiful town. It has a lot to offer. Right. Like I'm going to go have a few great days there. And oh, by the way, I'm running in a graded stake that could possibly get my horse to the Epsom Oaks. That's the kind of smoke I want.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. I can see that. And as far as the breeding side goes, because I really enjoy the breeding side also, and the genetics and trying to match up the phenotype and the genotype. What do you look for when you're buying a broodmare, and what do you look for when you're matching her up with the stallion?
I only play at the top families in the world. That's that to me. Like I try not to play in the middle or below, because one of the things about this game is there's a lot of guesswork, and so in that part of the business, I mean, I run it like a business. In that part of the business, I try to take the guesswork out, meaning that I don't use unproven sires, right? Especially for these mares that have significant family lines, and so I'd rather spend more for something that I know works.
Right.
the stallion business and the breeding business is a really interesting thing because a lot of people are willing to take shots in the breeding business with stallions that are unproven because they want to be right. Mm-hmm. That costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of money go down the drain every single year, and it's going to happen forever.
Yep.
For me, I'd rather pay more knowing. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather pay for Curlin, or I'd rather pay for Tappet, or Into Mischief, Gun Runner. I mean, these are machine gun sires. They get results. And why they get results, no one knows. Some work and some don't. Doesn't matter how good they are on the racetrack, what their pedigree was, just doesn't matter. They either work or they don't work. Something I learned a long time ago.
Right. And
I match them up with some of the best families in the world. So, when I bring something to Saratoga or to Keeneland or wherever I'm selling as a yearling, it's got serious pedigree, no matter what. Actually, do you know that a horse that I bred that you own is running in a week?
I was going to actually break it on the show. Yeah, on the 15th.
Well,
America the Great. Yeah. How do you know? Wait a second. That's supposed to be a secret.
America the Great.
America the Great. Yep. Our partner, Gary Barber, bought and named her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, because you campaigned America.
I did. America has been an amazing broodmare for me. I mean, I've sold, lots of really, really good foals out of her. I mean, she's just one after the, and I have another one. I have a colt by Gun Runner that's going to go to Saratoga. That, I mean, he just looks like you want them to look. It's just one of those things. And so I love that part of it. I love it. I keep my mares and my foals at Stone Farm, Arthur Hancock's, the Hancock family. I mean, I just love being with that family. They're spectacular people. The places like Disney World for horses. I mean, you go there and it is just spectacular. It's 22 or 2,400 acres of just spectacular horse farm. And they're horses that live like horses. I mean, it is what it is. It's so beautiful.
Yep. And Bob, you bring up a very good point because, we talk about horsemanship. And there's a difference in my mind, between salesmanship and horsemanship. And you go to Stone Farm, you go to Airdrie, you go to farms like that are just old school, good old fashioned, hard knock horses. And they're going to come and they're not going to be spit polished, and they may have some cuts on them or some bites, but they're horses. And they're laying bone down because they're playing and they're romping and they're doing all the right thing. And as a buyer, when I go to Stone Farm, when I go to their consignment, trainers have said to us, and we see it, these horses aren't perfect right now. They're not peaked right now. And you don't want them to be peaked in September when you're racing them, a year later or 9 months later. So there's a great philosophy behind going to a farm like that, knowing that the buyers are like salivating because they know that these horses still have some upside to them.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. So I used to work with a gentleman named James Delahook, who is he passed away a few years ago, but he was a legendary bloodstock owner. All the families that Juddmonte have are based on things that he bought, 2 and 3 generations ago.
Wow.
And then I got to team up with him, 10, 12, 14 years ago. And he taught me so much about horses, about, their demeanor and what's important to them and the land and all those kinds of things. And he said to me, at Stone Farm, it's like hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
They go out there and they have to hang out with each other and they become horses. And the one thing that about a place like Stone Farm is you're getting a pure horse.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's in this business, that's a leg up, so to speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're getting something that's 100% pure.
Yep.
I want to jump back to the Derby for a second because, there's already been reports that Sovereignty might skip the Preakness. This is the new normal now. Every year, it's not going to be a guarantee that the Derby winner runs in the Preakness like it used to be. Being a lifelong racing fan like you are, I would surmise that you are a traditionalist and you would like to keep the Triple Crown the way it is. But you tell me, because there's marketing concerns as well. There's horse welfare concerns and just obviously the quality of the fields. Where are you at on whether or not the Triple Crown should be elongated?
I love this. You're right. I am a traditionalist, but let me tell you what that means to me when it comes to horse racing. That means that I like to put a nice suit on because I respect the game. That's just me. Not everybody. A lot of my friends are like, I'm not putting a jacket on. I'm like, well, then you can't sit with me. I'll see you in the grandstand. But I like to make a day out of it. We haven't been able to do it since Belmont moved, but I would always have like a breakfast at my house on Belmont morning. I would take 20 or 30 people. I'd put everybody in cars. Nobody was allowed to drive. And we'd go to the track and drink, and then at the end of the track, we'd go to this steakhouse that we went to every single time as tradition. I like those kinds of traditions for sure. In the case of the Triple Crown, they need to change it because, and that's one of the things when I was on the board of the Breeders' Cup and the board of directors of NYRA. Yes, I think that tradition is important, but I also have progressive ideas to make things better.
Right.
I mean, you have to keep up with what's going on. I mean, the bottom line is, look, I wish trainers would run their horses more than they have been. It seems like it keeps getting. First, it was like, when I was a kid, these horses they'd run 30 times a year.
Yeah, right.
Before Lasix was in New York, and it was only in New Jersey. You remember that?
Yep.
And now it's then it was 3 weeks, then it was 4 weeks, now it's 6 weeks, now it's 2 months. All of a sudden, you're running 4 times a year.
Right.
Like I've been an athlete my whole life. Athletes need to be sharp.
Yeah.
I always feel like they need to be sharpened more than just having time off. Even though they're training, they're galloping, they're working, all those things. You got to get in the game.
Right.
And actually, your trainer, Mark Cassie, I mean, I could hear on your podcast a few weeks ago him saying that he likes to run horses more than some of the other trainers out there. And I get it.
Yep.
But the bottom line is 2 weeks just doesn't seem like 2025 right now. It just doesn't.
Right.
So why force the issue?
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's dates here and there. Everybody has to come to the table and like do their thing. I know NYRA doesn't want to move Belmont for whatever reason.
Right.
To me, it should be first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, first Saturday in July. Just figure it out.
Right.
The Triple Crown is the most important thing in our sport. The next most important thing is the Breeders' Cup. But when you look at the mainstream world, first of all, I don't know if you saw this. NBC had 17 million people watch it this week.
Right.
It was a huge day for them. Okay.
Huge. Yep.
The Breeders' Cup has, I don't know, 1 million. Okay. So it's an important race for us, but for the mainstream people, it's a long way back.
Right.
So forget about what else has to happen. Then the Jim Dandy, then the trap. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What really matters is the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. And until that changes, that's what should be given the focus.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you can't run 4 weeks after the Derby, then sit it out.
Then shame on you.
No problem.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I come around on this because I used to think, well, if you elongate the Triple Crown and the horse wins all 3 races, it's not nearly as impressive an accomplishment because they didn't have to do the 3 races in the 5 weeks. But now that I've seen some of the fields, the piss poor fields at the Preakness, I now think it might actually be a bigger accomplishment because you will get 6-7 horses from the Derby to run back in the Preakness instead of like 2 or 3 now. You might actually have to be a better horse to do it in that case.
Well, also, then we used to have this thing. The sport used to have, the Visa $5 million bonus. You remember this?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That obviously doesn't exist anymore. But I think that you could find a sponsorship if it made sense for horses where you didn't force the horses to kind of run. We don't ever want to do that.
Right.
But if you gave a breath to these horses, if it was 4 weeks between the Derby and the Preakness, Bill Mott would be like, yeah, we're running. As long as the horse, I mean, there'd be no question.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
You guys might run. I mean, who knows?
Run.
Like 4 weeks, everybody would line up again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No,
Journalism would be there. I mean, they would all line up.
Yeah.
And that's what used to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now what happens is you have maybe the Kentucky Derby winner, maybe a couple of other horses, and then you have all new shooters.
Right. Exactly.
We're now pointing for the Preakness, not the Derby.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're sitting here as an industry and we're trying to regain a social license. So basically, if we can't get a sponsor to put up a couple $1 million bonus, okay. But you know what? Because I'm on the board also with the Breeders' Cup, we have $80 million that's sitting kind of, sitting on the ready. So if we did it internally and then eventually, it caught on, it would be an easier transition to be able to do it and it'd be good use of money. And I know people have also said, well, you can't change it because it's going to tarnish and blah, blah. You know what? Nobody's looking at the Baseball Hall of Fame and going, hey, stadiums move their fences in 100 feet. So maybe this home run leader shouldn't be in the hall. Nobody gives a crap anymore because it's basically what's best for the current situation.
I mean, look, when we have a trip, the Preakness is a really important race. People think it's not as important as the other two, but in fact, it's just as important because obviously the Derby is the Derby. It's the most important race. Right. But if the Derby winner wins the Preakness, everybody's tied on for the next 3 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have even if the horse doesn't win the Triple Crown,
right,
everybody's paying attention.
Exactly. And which is good for the sport. And Bob, I'll tell you one other thing that I found was interesting. So we're in the process of negotiating, the Stallion rights on Sandman. Okay. And people, the farms are giving us bonus, kicker schedules.
Yep.
If you win the Derby, it's X amount. If you win the Preakness, it's Y amount. However, they said to me, and not just one farm, but multiple farms have said to me, if you win the Belmont, that's great, but we're not putting it in the kicker because breeders don't want Belmont winners, which blows my mind that's the case.
Wait, even at a mile and a quarter?
Even at a mile and a quarter, because you have to re-educate the entire breeding industry because they're so used to the mile and a half. So yeah, the past couple of years, like last year, this year, next year, it's going to be a mile and a quarter, the same distance as the Kentucky Derby.
Right.
But the fact that the Belmont is on his resume is a negative to the horse as a stallion. That floors me.
I find it to be completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's just somebody who looked at stats 15 years ago and just went,
right.
I don't it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
First of all, the Belmont, they call it the test of champions, right? It's, it's stamina. I mean, we want to breed classic distance horses. I mean, that's
right.
That's
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's honestly a question I have, for your breeding program, because, you do have a lot of flash in the pan horses that now are whisked off to stud. Is that one of the things that you look for? Do you look for more hardiness, more distance capabilities? Is that something you factor in as opposed to a horse that maybe ran 3 or 4 times, was brilliant, and then couldn't keep it together?
Yeah, I mean, I do. But again, you don't know what's going to happen. Right. I mean, nobody knew what the Tappet was going to be Tappet. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, he was $10,000.
Yeah.
He was like this narrow, thin horse who won, I think, one grade 1 or something. Right. But then he turned into Tappet. So you don't really know what it is. And so, look, Joe, if the horse, I think Stormcat had an abbreviated career. I think
he did.
2-year-old winner or something,
Yeah. And he won a greatest stake at the Meadowlands.
Right. As I said, I don't try to be right. So if Flightline comes off the track as, the greatest thing we've ever seen, and I'm if he becomes the greatest stallion we've ever seen,
right,
I'll pay more.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel about it. I'm not going to.
But that's what I mean. That's the test case right there, because he was so brilliant, but you won't go to him in his first couple of years. No. Is that what you're saying?
I won't go to him, not because I don't think he can work. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. But when I bring something into the ring, first of all, the dam side is going to be
bulletproof.
Okay, that's for sure. But on the sire side, it's going to be it's going to be Curlin, it's going to be Uncle Mo, it's going to be Into Mischief, it's going to be Gun Runner, it's going to be Not This Time. It's going to be all. Actually, you bought my Not This Time share too, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, yep.
I think that was a good buy.
Yeah, you want it back?
No.
You're back at a 10x markup.
No, but you're right. And the breeding industry, we can sit here all day and talk about it. It's completely upside down because people get so excited about these freshman sires, and even the calculus of how to figure out what you should stand a horse for. It's like, okay, well, if we get 250 paid matings, in the first year, and then 75 in the second year, and you go, wait a second. You're getting 250 the first year, and you're dropping off. Your projection is 75. That's completely backwards.
Yeah,
completely backwards.
Yeah, we were talking about the Belmont. Bobby, you mentioned you don't have the house at Saratoga anymore. Are you going to be up there? What's your plan for the Belmont?
I'm definitely going to be up there. I'm going to be there. That's basically it. I wasn't there last year, and I heard it was great. People told me that they just had a great. Listen, Saratoga is a special place to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm. My house was like I couldn't hide from anybody in Saratoga. My house was literally like people were like on my lawn taking photos and stuff. It's just like, you know, I just want to be one of the I just want to be one of the boys, but like sometimes, you know, it becomes a little difficult, especially if there's people you don't know rolling by your house all the time.
Right.
So anyway, just got like a little bit whatever.
We get it. All right. I got two final questions. Number one is, how did Joe and I get invited to your Belmont party? That's
what I was angling for, John, and John just comes out.
Well, when Belmont comes back to Belmont, I live in Tribeca. So when Belmont comes back to Belmont, you'll definitely be invited.
Okay.
100%.
All right. Do I have to bring Joe
next year? We don't know.
All right.
I think so.
All right. And my second question is, and this is more of an overarching food question. Okay. If I'm trying to impress a potential investor client, and just a good food restaurant in Manhattan, what do you recommend?
You want a New York experience?
Yeah.
Minetta Tavern.
Okay.
You been there, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that place. First of all, you can go late, you can go early. There's always a buzz. The bar's amazing. They have everything from like spectacular steaks and fish to amazing burgers. They make great cocktails, and it's a good scene. That's a New York restaurant.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. And I can use your name. I can drop your name to get a taste.
Totally. Joe Bianca.
Joe Bianca. There's a table next to the dumpster.
Yeah. So do you live in Brooklyn or Manhattan now?
I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was going to say, I spent a lot of time in Williamsburg. There's a lot of great restaurants in Williamsburg. You have Feeney Pizza, right? Is that yours?
No, it's not mine. I go there, but it's
okay.
I like Lindustry as well. Lindustry.
Yeah, Lindustry is awesome. A couple other places I really like in Williamsburg. Trafe, Francie, which is near Peter Luger's, is really awesome. We're pretty lucky.
Yeah. Have you been to Lucali?
No, not yet.
Oh, you got to go there.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Bobby, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate you watching the show as well. You obviously do a great job in your regular life, and you do a great job on the breeding and racing side too. Appreciate the time, brother.
My pleasure. And I wish you guys luck with Sandman. He's a handsome colt, and we want to see him in the winner's circle some more.
Yeah,
he's the man. Hope to see you up in Saratoga.
Best luck with your homebreds.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the #1 accounting firm in the horse business. Is one reason that they are the king of the hill. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. It was so great to see Len on Saturday. He came back to the boxes where we were hanging out, and I gave him a hug, and then I was like, "Ugh, you're wet." So it was awesome that he did the walkover like that. That's so cool. Like I didn't know for sure if he was going to do it with you guys. So, but yeah, I mean, this is the pinnacle of the industry, and he deserves to be there. So I'm glad that he was able to literally and figuratively soak it all in on Saturday at rainy Churchill Downs, and can't wait to see him and the rest of the team up at Saratoga for the Belmont. Hopefully, fingers crossed as well. But back to the business. Len owns over 200 horses. DJ Stables won over 2,500 races. They got the top 3-year-old turf filly in the country right now. They got almost 1,000 clients in the horse business because they make them money and save them taxes. As always, there's a special offer for listeners of Rail Talk, and I know a lot of you have taken Len up on this, offering a complimentary, confidential half-hour consultation, guaranteeing he'll find you value. You can call him up at, what's that number, Michael Agresta?
732-634-5100. Green Group.
I'm running out of dances to do every week, but it's like if you got any new choreography.
I'm doing the Running Man. You just can't see it.
If you do any new choreography for me, give me a holler. So call them up at 732-634-5100 or go to greenco.com. You also don't have to take it from me. Listen to another satisfied customer, noted, renowned, and awesome guy, another renowned consignor and awesome guy, Randy Miles, will tell you all about how Len's been able to help him.
It started a long time ago, probably 10 years ago. We needed some real help, both my partner and I, and we called Len, and he made us feel very comfortable. And we have been with Len for 10 years. He knows the horse business. He knows the game. He makes us feel super, super comfortable about the ins and outs of what we're trying to do. And so it's just it's a good marriage between two country boys that don't know much about the taxes and a really smart guy. And plus, he's in the horse business. So it makes us feel that more comfortable.
Thank you, Randy. And you can be like Randy and find all of the potential tax benefits of owning horses, of working with horses in any way. Len and the Green Group are experts in the field. Call them up at 732-634-5100 or go to greenco.com. So there was a lot of terrific non-derby action over the weekend. And before I do that, we get to that, I just want to shout out us on a personal level, all the West Point partners that came out. We had an unbelievable turnout on the Thursday morning backstretch tour at our cocktail party on Thursday night, and then Oaks Day and Derby Day, obviously. It was great to see everybody. And it's one of the things I love about this job is like being around that many passionate people at the races and on the backstretch. So shout out to the team at West Point and shout out to all the partners as well who came through. Oaks was a total miss on my part. Like I was way against Good Cheer. I just didn't think that she towered over that field the way the odds suggested. And I was dead wrong. She was way the best, handled the sloppy track, went wide, and is clearly the leader in the 3-year-old filly division. John, before we get to the rest of the undercard, any thoughts about the Oaks?
Well, I mean, again, I know that we can say, hey, the richest people won and good for them and tip your cap. But it's still in this business, as you like to say, Joe, it's a meritocracy. It's not how much money you have. And I think that we do need to tip our cap to that program because, they won the Derby, they won the Oaks, they won a couple of the undercard races, and they stand Medaglia d'Oro, who is the sire of Good Cheer and the sire of our filly Nitrogen that I know we'll talk about in a little bit. So I think that, Good Cheer remaining undefeated is great for the industry. Good Cheer winning that race on the slop and showing that she has, kind of a breadth to her abilities as well, is a really intriguing thing. And that was a really stacked. I thought that the Oaks was a tougher race entry than the Derby. It's just my opinion. And I bet against, we went on the show. I went on the show with you and said, I'm going to take the chalk away and not bet on Good Cheer and not bet on Cassie's entry, Lacara. And I was right on one of them. But it was not an easy race as the Oaks, should be laid out to be. It should be a tougher race. And Good Cheer showed that she's got the moxie and that she can run on slop, mud, rain, fast, broken glass. It doesn't matter. Like really, influential fillies like that, influential horses like that run on anything. And she is atop the class and for good reason. I mean, how many times have we seen, in recent years, Joe, where a horse is, what is she, 7 for 7, 8 for 8 now?
Mm-hmm. 7 for 7.
Yeah. I mean, this late in their career, to have taken on all comers and have finished first every single race. That's not easy at any class in any division.
No. She's the real deal. I mean, I'm going to disagree with you about the quality of the Oaks field. I didn't think it was that great, but she certainly is the goods. And yeah, like I said before, there's a lot of really talented, really smart, good people who work for Godolphin. I'm just not particularly happy for the principles of the ownership.
Yep.
So I get it. To clarify that before people start yelling at me, because apparently I have to be happy for every single owner and every single trainer that wins any big race at any point throughout the year. So just to be clear and clarify that.
Well,
I know that
the Godolphin influencers are good people you can root for. So
they all have to be my favorite horses of all time, but I have to root for every single one.
I will say this though, and this is again just showing the class of the people that I know that are out of the Darley representation group. I was standing there waiting to come over with Sandman. Boy, how quickly we forget our horses' names, right?
What's his face?
The horse
the gray guy.
Derby, the gray horse. Yeah, exactly. And I'm standing there and it's pouring down rain. And Kate Galvin, who is a friend of the show and a friend of mine, walks over to me. And the good mom that she is said, I have an extra rain poncho if you want. And she gave me a rain poncho because I was just a sopping wet mess at that point before I even started to cry. I was just, it was all the rain. So it's nice. It's nice when good things happen to good people. Okay. On that.
No, for sure. And like I said, there's a lot of good folks in that operation. Yep. Just to clarify,
okay.
John, I got to brag a little bit at the top of this segment about West Point and the West Point family. you can brag a little bit because Nitrogen did her thing again in the Edgewood. She was awesome. She's so clearly the best horse in that division. I already knew that going in, but she just stamped it again. Honestly, I can't remember a 3-year-old filly at this point in the year who was this head and shoulders against over the rest of her contemporaries. What was that like?
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying, and the fact that she's a homebred too,
right?
Really adds just a little bit additional cherry on top of the sundae. I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it. I'm genuine when I say that, Joe, because you don't, when you go into these big races, especially on Oaks and Derby Day, you're going against the best of the best. And I know that the filly won at Keeneland, about a month before, and in the Appalachian, and that also was a very tough race. But when you get on the biggest stage, and in this case, on Oaks Day, and you have an opportunity to run a horse that's 6-5, you want them to run like they're 6-5. And Nitrogen did. And there was a lot of talk and about, well, Lush Lips is a really nice filly, and she is. Our other part of the entry, Vixen, is a really nice filly, and she is. And can they turn the table? And things were trending in that direction. And all Nitrogen did was said, hold my beer, and just made a big run down the lane. And she's improving every single time. And the thing that was the most fun about the win was that earlier that day, we brought a friend of ours to the barn to meet Nitrogen and Vixen and America the Great, who's our horse that we own that Bobby Flay bred, and to kind of stand within 10 yards of Sandman, not get too close to Sandman, but stand within, shouting range of Sandman. And this is the morning of the race. All Nitrogen was doing was this, like up against our friend Jody, just loving her and rubbing on her, and just couldn't get enough, interest, and was like a horse, was like a fun, really kind horse. And that's the way she's always been, until you put the blinkers on. And when she gets her blinkers on, it's like a totally different horse. I mean, the all of a sudden it's game time, and she is all business at that point. But yeah, it's when you see a horse like that have that extra gear, especially in a grade 2 or a grade 1, it's really exciting. But the fact that now we have the mare, we have the half sister, the mare was bred to, not this time, a little cross promotion there. And, it's a very proud moment for me when we do that. My dad got to walk her into the winner's circle. She wore our colors, cause she's all ours. So there were just a lot of factors that made me very proud that moment and very proud that day. And it doesn't happen that often, but she's undefeated this year. She's 4.
What's next for her?
She is going to run on Belmont Day. Actually, we'll have the Nitrogen Sandman daily double again. It's like a $300,000 grade 2 on the undercard.
The Wonder again?
Belmont. I believe that is. I'll have to. I don't remember the name, unfortunately.
I think it's the Wonder again because it's like the prep for the Saratoga Oaks.
Yes, that is. Basically, her next series is going to be a 3-race series in New York. That's awesome. Where she's going to be. And by winning the Edgewood, she got like a free pass, free entry, and a travel voucher to go to Ascot to run. And they were in the trophy room with us, talking to us about the merits of it. And I didn't want to be rude, but basically I was like, no, she's running in New York. And they were like, well, but we have this voucher and we'd really like to have her. I understand. I agree. But this is New York.
Can I take that voucher?
You can take the voucher.
Is it transferable?
It is, but you're going to have to run, a mile and an eighth in under 2 minutes. So if you can do that, God bless.
I'll start training right now. Daddy wants to go to Royal Ascot. But yeah, so that was a phenomenal win. Can't wait to see what she does the rest of the year. Just a couple of other results I want to mention from the undercards on Derby and Oaks Day. Torpedo Anna finally got beaten. I thought going into that race, and you can check the tapes, like Jimmy and I tried to beat her in the pick 5 at least. That didn't end up cashing, but nevertheless, she just seemed like she was out of her game from the start. She had a little trouble going into the first turn, and then once she turned for home, just didn't have it at all. Dr. Bramlage went over her, couldn't find anything wrong. So hopefully it was just a bad day. Well, she's obviously one of our best stars in racing in a really long time. And then 2 horses I wanted to mention in particular in winning efforts, Fierceness and Copian. I thought were both really, really good. Obviously, Fierceness first start of the year, winner 107 buyer. I think it was stakes record or track record, one of those two.
New track
record, yeah. So that's pretty impressive for a mile and a 16th at Churchill. They've been running a lot of races at that distance for a really long time. The Most Wanted ran really well to be second in there. Locked was a bit of a disappointment. But yeah, Fierceness is leader in that division now. It's, until Sierra Leone does something super impressive, to me, he's the horse to beat. And Copian has come a long way in a really short amount of time for Richard Mandela in winning the La Brea and then winning that other race that name escapes me right now out in California, and then coming east or to the Midwest and winning the Derby City Distaff. She got a 109 buyer, I believe, to back up the 108 that she got in the California race. Those were the two most impressive horses on the undercards for me, John. Any thoughts on them or anybody else that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I would have to jump in and say Mind Frame in the Churchill Downs.
That was a great race. What a great finish that was.
Oh, it was like a 4-horse photo, right? I mean, it was it was unbelievable. And again, a horse that that's not his preferred distance. And to come out and run 7/8 and run those horses down and really get them at the nip. I mean, at the very last moment, to get up for the victory. Again, I'm name dropping. Vinny Viola and his wife were in the box with us when the horse ran. And he's a really down to earth. I mean, I had never really spent a lot of time talking to Vinny Viola and his family, and just what good people. I mean, down to earth. You wouldn't know that he's as wealthy as he is, and was more concerned about is my dad warm? Is he cold? Does he need something to eat? Just a good dude. But he was so excited that the horse won and got it at the last zap. It was just nice because there was such a positive energy, from that horse winning. And again, coming off a little bit of time layoff and not running his preferred distance and getting his very first grade 1 win, right? If I remember correctly.
Yep.
So I would say that was the one race that I took away and said, wow, and that was a stakes record, I think, too, in the slop.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was really impressive.
Yeah.
And, I think all 4 across the wire first ran really big races too. That was a stacked race with Nisos and Mulligan and Bookham Dano. It's a grade 1 you expect it to be, but that was a really, really nice race. And I think that makes me look forward to the Met Mile coming up on Belmont Day. How stacked is that race going to be?
Yep. And for those of you who are listening at home, I can tell you with all honesty and sincerity, if you don't have your tickets and your hotel reservations for Belmont weekend, you better do it sooner rather than later, because we tried, and basically everything in and around Saratoga Springs and like a 20-mile radius from a hotel standpoint is locked down, sold out. Even if you wanted to spend more than going rate, it's going to be a tough get to do it. And tickets are also going to be difficult. I know for the Kentucky Derby, they still had some excess capacity as far as tickets go, but I don't think that's going to be the case at Saratoga. And it looks like those races, people are pointing for those races. I mean, us included, by Asa. You mentioned all those horses that are going to run in the Met Mile. It is going to be a great weekend of racing. And how much fun is it that it's going to be at Saratoga?
Yeah, I mean, it was great last year. Like I said, the only thing is Saturday was too crowded.
Yeah.
It's Belmont Day last year at Saratoga with supposedly 50,000 people.
Right.
Felt way more crowded than Churchill did on Saturday with 150,000 people. So I really hope that they restrict the attendance just a little bit, because Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday last year were all really fun,
right,
and they did a great job at Naira. I'm dreading Saturday a little bit just because of how crowded it's going to be, but we'll see.
Yep. Well, I'm hoping that
I'm an old man, by the way. This is my official transformation into an old man. That it was fun, but could you not sell it so much?
Yeah. Welcome to the dark side. You're getting your AARP card pretty soon, Joe.
Wait.
I'm hoping that, and this is a shout out to anyone who's in his camp. I'm hoping that we can get David O'Rourke on the show sometime between now and before Belmont weekend, because we'd love to hear about all the new construction going on and the new plans for Belmont, what they're seeing as far as Saratoga this year, and obviously Belmont at Saratoga, or the Belmont at Saratoga weekend. Like you said, they did it last year. I think they kind of learned a couple of things and are ironing it all out. But I'm really, and I don't like crowds, and I'm really looking forward to that just because the card is going to be so impressive.
Well, you're going to be in like a suite, John. It's different when you're 6 or 7 deep at the post bar.
Doubtful. All I know is I was I'm a humble brag. I was in the paddock for the Kentucky Derby, and I'm looking around, and basically all I'm seeing is people's shoulders. Because, we're packed in there like sardines and I can't see. And then I see like Jose go by and he goes, "Hey," and he points over at me. I was like, I was like a fanboy. I was like, "Oh, my stars."
Yeah. Still starstruck by all of the celebrities that only we would ever recognize. But yeah, and also shout out to Jose, because he rode that horse as to the best of his abilities, considering the circumstances. He's a great guy. That's the other thing, is it's great to be part of this team. I mentioned the Cassie team before, and you mentioned Vinny, and obviously West Point, and you and your dad. It's a really great group of people, and like I said, I can't wait for us to get up there for the Belmont. Rail Talk is sponsored by Tailor Made. They got it all covered, from boarding mares to picking out spots for your yearlings, to the consignments, to the stallion barn, to the partnerships. And, John knows this more than anybody. They just have such a great personal touch with their clients and with the people that they work with, and threw a little shindig for y'all. John, tell us about it.
They did. It was a very small shindig. It was a private room at a restaurant that they own a piece of, Malone's Prime, right there in Lexington. And we had just gone out to look at all of our yearlings, because now is the time when you need to start delineating which sale the yearlings are going to go into. So it was a very important analysis going over the yearlings. Had a little break, and then all met at Malone's. Had a great, steak dinner, and just was really fun to sit back and actually, Joe, I know you're not going to believe this, but I was actually a fly on the wall. I actually did more listening than talking, and listened to some of the great stories by brothers Duncan and Mark Taylor and Jeff Hazlett. And, they kind of waxed poetically about the industry and made fun of each other, which is always my favorite part of the evening, but just really down to earth people. Good guys, good people you want to spend time with, and people you can trust, that can, manage your horse portfolio and sell the ones that need to be, put in sales and maximize your investment. So good people, quality horsemen, and it was a really fun afternoon and fun evening. Hearing stories and just set the tone for just a wonderful weekend down in Kentucky.
It is time for the final Mage Rage Derby leaderboard. As always, the Mage Rage Derby contest is sponsored by our friends at Airdrie Stud and Mage. And how much must Puka be worth now? Not only did you have Mage, you have Dornoch, and now she's responsible for Baeza, who was third in the Derby, and I'm going to go out on a limb, is going to be a Grade 1 winner at some point before his career is up. Talk about a blue hen mare. And Mage is only standing for $25,000 at the moment. He's by a superstar stallion. He's out of the foremost superstar broodmare of this generation at the moment. So you're a fool if you don't get down on the ground floor with Mage. He obviously was the Derby winner. He was super brilliant, but the family, I think, even more than anything, is what you want to buy into. So do it now. Go to airdriestud.com to learn more. We'll check out the standings, and then next week, I think we're hopefully going to have Sam, Michelle, and Dan back on the show for one little post-mortem shit-talking session about the contest. Sam is your winner, Samantha Perry.
Yay,
Samantha. Our favorite Oklahoma City Thunder fan. They lost game 1 last night, so this was good that she was able to come through and at the top of the contest. Finishes at the top with 51.75. John finishes second with 41.7. Joe right in the middle of the pack with 29.75. Michelle Yu, 26.65. And Dan in last. That's 17.
Could he possibly have negative points? It just goes to show, if you don't prepare for class, you're not going to do well on the quiz. Although
Sam did the draft from the beach.
Yeah, but she's innately knowledgeable about everything going on.
All right.
I did pick the winner though. I did pick the winner, which I was very pleased about. Joe, one more quick thing before we put a bow on this contest for Mage. So just so we can tie all of our important sponsors together in one sentence. We, DJ Stable, Len Green, are selling a mare in foal to Mage, Airdrie Stud, in a Phasic Tipton digital sale through Tailor Made. Now,
Wow.
if you had on your bingo card that there could be one sentence in the show that would encapsulate and include every single one of our sponsors, you win.
Excellent. You know, there's nothing I love more than synergy for all of our advertisers. So shout out to Sam for winning, and shout out to Mage and Airdrie Stud for sponsoring the contest. And as I mentioned, next week we'll do one final wrap of the contest. One other thing I wanted to mention before we sign off. Our intrepid producer, Patricia Wolf, has a new puppy. This was a pleasant surprise last week when she sent us these pictures that you're seeing on the screen right now of little Jordy, who's 5 months old and is super adorable. Big paws on a puppy, as Marlo Stanfield would say. He's going to be a big boy and is super cute. And I'm just so happy for Patty, who's always had dogs and hadn't had one up until this for a little while. Patty, we love you. We're so happy that you've added to the family and cannot wait to see that little guy grow up. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 89 of Rail Talk. Appreciate Bobby Flay for coming by and chatting with us. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of our best interviews, but every interview has been great, especially recently. Yeah, this show just kicks ass. I mean, you don't need us to tell you that. But appreciate you tuning in. Thanks to our producer, Patty Wolf, our associate producers, Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson, Jon Green, as always, the sponsors, you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, wherever you get your pods. Shout out to everybody who stopped us on Derby Week and told us how much they love the show. Really means a lot to us. And we'll see you back here next week on Rail Talk.